Hello YouTube, this is DrawingKid1313 and welcome to your second C++ programming tutorial. Now for the first C++ tutorial, I apologize for the quality of the audio. I don't believe that my mic was set up properly, so it was actually using my mic that's built into my laptop instead of using the headset that I have, so audio quality was a little off on that one. So hopefully now it's fixed, my voice is more clear, and you don't hear all that banging on the keyboard because I do type very violently and I apologize for that. But that's just how I type. And my keyboard, it's just kind of noisy as well. So in this programming tutorial, we are going to learn about variables. Variables are very important in programming because they are used to store information. Now the information that they store depends on what type of variable they are. Now we all learned about variables hopefully in algebra, or really whatever math class you took. And a variable would be x. And if you had an equation 10 equals 2x, that x actually has a value based on what everything else is. So that's basically what a variable is in C++. It's either numerical word, letter, value, and it basically just stores information. So there are a few different types of variables. Let's go over a few. The main one is an integer value. To make an integer variable, you just simply type int, int, integer, same thing. And then after you type int, because basically what this is doing is it's telling you what type of variable it is, after that you have to give it a name. So let's just give it a name like number. Now you can usually name it whatever you want. The only thing that you can't do is you can't name it something that already has a specific function, such as return. Return right here, you can see that it's used just kind of in plain day. It already has a certain meaning to it. So if I try to use int and I try to name it return, it's not going to work. One, you can tell that it doesn't work because it's bolded. So just don't do that. So instead we're going to name it number. And then to assign values to a variable, you simply just say the name of the variable number equals, and then you have to give it a value. Since this is an integer value, you have to give it an integer value. You can't give it we don't want to give it a value of Tyler. That's not going to work because Tyler is not an integer value. It's actually a string, and we'll go over that later. So an integer value would be, a whole number. It can't be decimal places. It has to be a whole number, but it can be negative if you want. Hopefully you learned all about this in math, and it would make it a lot easier if you know what an integer is and all that. So number equals 7. So now we have just taken our variable that we created and we assigned it a number, that certain number being 7. Now to prove this, just in case you're like, I don't believe you, it's not really 7. Well, I'm going to prove it by outputting it onto the screen. We learned how to output information in the previous episode. The only difference is in the last episode we went ahead and we just outputted text. We can output a number pretty much the same way. The only difference is we don't use the quotation marks, because if we did quotation marks number, this is what would happen. Let me show you real quick. So I'm going to run this. Alright, we're going to name it, I think I name it variables and stuff. And yes, I did create a new project. So if we run this, it's just going to output number. That's not exactly what we want to happen. So if we just say output number without quotation marks, it's like, alright, output some information, output the variable number, and then it looks back at your program and be like, alright, what was inside number? What was number storing? Well, it's storing 7. So hopefully when we run this, we should get 7. 7. Perfect. So that is very useful, and you can have, constant numbers. Like let's say that we always wanted this certain number to be 7, and whenever we had to output the number 7, we could just output that, and we don't have to say output 7. Of course, you could do this. I believe you could do this. This would be easy as well. But what if you wanted to change it? I don't know. What if you wanted to easily change it and you didn't want to have to go back in your code and just change this? You could just do number. And let's say that this was somewhere else in our code and we're like, oh right, we don't want number to be equal to 7 anymore. We want it to be equal to 15. We can go ahead and run that. And there we go. It's now 15. Let's output it on the screen. So that is very useful. Now let's go over a few other types of variables. Now again, we're still dealing with numbers here. We're going to say it's a double. All right. Sorry, not a double. Let's say it's a float. A float is another type of variable, and let's just name it another. Since we're still dealing with numbers, I'm going to name it number again. That way we already have it outputting on the screen. Now, float value will store a decimal value. So it will be a number. It can be negative or positive, and it will have a decimal. So let's say that we wanted to store the number 3.14159265358979323. Those are the digits of pi that I have memorized. Don't ask me why I memorized pi, or at least that many numbers. I just did. So now we just say number equals that. We go ahead and end our line because we always have to end our line. And when we run this, it's going to output that. The only problem is it doesn't quite store that many decimal places. It only stores a few, so 3.14159. That's all it does. So yeah. Now the difference is, let's say if we had this be an int. First things first is it may yell at us. You can see that it yelled at us right there. You can see it right there. It says warning, converting int from double. And you can see that it doesn't output 3.14159. It outputs 3 because it rounds it. If you try to have a decimal number and you output it as an integer, it's going to round it for you. So it's also going to yell at you down here. So just keep that in mind. So now, what if you have a number and you're like, alright, it might be a decimal, but it might not be a decimal. So if it is a decimal, I want it to output as a decimal, but if it is a whole number, I want it to output as a whole number. Well, for this, you use another type of variable called double. A double can store either a decimal number or a whole number. So let's go ahead and do number, and then let's do number 2. That way we can have two different ones, alright? And then we're just going to simply output it right here, number 2, and then we have another end line. So what this will do is it'll output number, it'll end the line, so it starts a new line, and then it outputs number 2, and then we go ahead and we end the line again. Now let's say number 2 can equal 5. We just want it to equal 5. Let's just put some random decimals in there, that way it's not too long. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to run this. And we can see that the first one, since it was a decimal value, it went ahead and it outputted a decimal value. And then it went ahead and just outputted the whole number value, number 2, which is 5. So that is really cool. Now you can see the difference if we were to make this a float. Alright. It's going to run. It'll do the same thing, but it can mess up some equations in your program, so you kind of want to stick to using the same value and the same type of variable that you have and that you have to use. So it's just good programming. If you don't do that, some more experienced programmers are going to yell at you, so just remember that. Now the next important type of variable that we have is a string variable. So just simply type string, and then of course we have to name it, so let's name this a word. Alright. Now, a string variable will store, let's do it in a different order. This will be a little bit better. Instead of a string, we're going to have a character variable. A character variable will store one character, store one thing. It will not store 2, it will not store 3, it will only store 1. If you try to store more than 1, well, it's going to yell at you. So now we just go ahead and we'll just go ahead and see out word. And end our line. Then char word, let's say that we want to make this equal to word letter. Char letter. Let's name it letter because that's a little bit better. It kind of describes it more. Letter. And we change this to letter. Letter equals, I don't know, let's name it A. Now whenever you assign a value to a character variable, you're going to want to surround the thing that you're assigning it to in these little what are they called? I don't know what they're called. Those little commas that are in the air. Or apostrophes, those work too. I completely forgot what they were called. But anyways, whenever you assign a character value, you have to put them inside of apostrophes. So just remember that and keep that in the back of your head. So now if we go ahead and we run this, it's going to output it, and we can see that it outputs A. That is awesome. Now we can also store other variables, like let's say that we wanted to do the pound sign. Alright, get out there. So the pound sign, this little number sign right there, which is called the pound sign, let's go ahead and run this, and we'll actually output that. See? outputs that little number symbol, which is awesome. Now the last thing that we are going to go over is a string variable. Now what a string variable is it's basically just a group of characters or a word. So it's basically, um, you know, yeah, it's basically a group of characters, and that's what I'm going to call it because that's what it is. So let's say that we want to assign word equal to, let's say, my name. All right. Whenever you assign a string variable of value, you're going to want to put your value in quotation marks. So just go ahead and do that. We're going to name it Drawing Kid 1313. Now you can see that I have kind of a mix of both letters and numbers, but it's going to work because they're all still characters. And then we end our quotations, we end our line. Now let's go ahead here and we're just going to output it. Word. End line. There we go. Now let's go ahead and run this. I'm running out of time a little bit here. It's running a little bit longer. And you can see that it outputs Drawing Kid 1313. So again, it just stores a group of characters. So again, we have int, we have doubles, we have floats, we have strings, we have characters, we have all those fun things. And in your programs, you're probably going to be using a lot of them, so kind of try and remember what they mean. Now, why they chose the words that they use to describe what they are, I don't know. The answer in C++ a lot of times is that's just how they made it. Sad enough, but it's true. That's just how they made it, and that's why it does what it does. So I hope that you have learned at least something in this tutorial. We went over quite a bit of information. We went over a whole bunch of different types of variables. It's a little bit longer than I like to have had it, but that's what we have to do in order to get a whole bunch of information into these tutorials. So again, I hope you have enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to leave a like, don't forget to subscribe to see more, and I'll see you all in my next video.